Sometimes, life places us in moments where everything feels stuck, where pain becomes part of our identity and hope feels just out of reach. But what if the very thing we think has defined us all along is about to be changed forever? Today, I want to take you on a journey, a story of a man who lived years in silence and struggle, only to encounter a love so powerful it broke every chain. Stay with us, because this isn't just a story from long ago. It's a reminder that healing and hope can find you too, no matter where you are right now. Being that said, let's begin.
I was that man. I'm telling you my name because this is my story, my truth. I'm Eleazar, son of Sephi, from the village of Capernaum. Let me ask you something. Not as a storyteller, not even as a teacher, but as one human soul to another. Have you ever lived so long in pain that after a while, it stopped feeling like pain, just started feeling like you? Not like something that happened to you, not like something you're going through, but like something you become. I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly lose the ability to walk. That would have been easier, in a way. At least then, people might have noticed. At least then, they might have cared. But no. It happened slowly, quietly. Like a shadow stretching across my life, inch by inch, until one day, it covered everything. It began with a numbness in my toes. Just a strange feeling, nothing serious. Then weakness. Then days where my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. And then one morning, I simply couldn't stand. Doctors came. They spoke in hushed tones, thinking I couldn't hear. They examined me like a puzzle missing pieces. And then, like everyone else, they left. No answers, no solutions. Just the same empty words people say when they don't know what else to offer. We'll pray for you. Be strong. Maybe this is God's will. My family tried, at first. They sat by my side. They brought food, told stories, kept my spirits up. But life keeps moving for everyone else. Birthdays dot harvests. Marriages, losses. It all marches on, like a parade you're no longer a part of. A parade you're not even allowed to watch up close. People stop looking you in the eye. Stop including you in their plans. Stop saying your name in conversations. I became the man they stepped around. The one they pitied. The one they whispered about when they thought I couldn't hear. He must have done something. God is punishing him for some secret sin. They didn't have to say it to my face. I saw it in their eyes. I felt it in the way they stopped believing in me. Stopped believing for me. And so, I stayed. 8 years. 8 long, slow, heavy years. Not walking. Not working. Not even hoping anymore. Because hope hurts worse than pain when you've been disappointed long enough. Every day was the same. Wake up, wait, sleep, repeat. Nothing changed. Nothing moved forward. Except time. Except people. Except life passing me by. I watched from my corner as others laughed, worked, argued, grew old. I watched children I used to play with become men I no longer recognized. I watched my world shrink down to the four walls of a house and the warm threads of the mat beneath my body. And the worst part, the thing no one talks about. Eventually, even I started to believe I deserved it. That this was who I was now. Not a man, not a son, not a friend. Just a burden, just a consequence. Forgotten by life, forgotten by God, forgotten even by myself. But the story doesn't end there, not yet. Because even when we've given up believing in miracles, miracles haven't given up believing in us. But I'll get to that soon. Then, one day, something happened, a name. That's how it began. Just a name, Jesus. It wasn't shouted in the streets. It wasn't preached from rooftops. It floated, soft, almost uncertain, through the air of my village. I heard it first in whispers, at the market, in hushed conversations between neighbors who didn't want to be thought foolish for hoping. At first, I rolled my eyes, because I had heard names before. So-called preachers, traveling prophets, men with loud voices and empty promises. Miracle workers who seemed to perform for crowds, but never stopped for men like me. They came, they spoke, they moved on, leaving behind people like me to sink back into the silence. So no, I wasn't interested, because I'd learned this truth. Miracles are for other people, for the wealthy, for the holy, for those with connections, with worth, with something to offer in return. Not for the forgotten, not for the weak, not for me. But something about this name, Jesus, it wouldn't leave me alone. The whispers grew louder. The stories stranger, more impossible. They said he healed a man with leprosy. Not from a distance, not with stone thrown or priest summoned. With his own hands. They said he touched the untouchable, and the disease fled from him like darkness before light. They said he spoke to demons, and they screamed. He commanded them, and they obeyed. They said he stood in a storm, not terrified, not begging the gods to spare him, but calm. Certain, and with a word, the winds fell silent. The waves knelt at his feet, honestly. I didn't believe it. Not really. Not because I thought he was lying, but because I thought, why would any of that matter to me? Why would someone like him, someone with power over storms and spirits, ever notice someone like me? Men like me aren't the center of stories. We're the background, the forgotten, the leftovers. We don't get miracles. But my cousins, they did believe. How they believed. They came to me with fire in their eyes, urgency in their voices. Eleazar, we've heard where he's staying. Not far. We're going. You're coming with us. And I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it hurt too much to hope. I told them to leave me be. That I was fine, that I didn't need another disappointment to carry, that I'd already made peace with my fate. But they didn't listen. They looked at me, not as a man condemned to the floor, but as a brother worth carrying. Little did I know, they were right. One morning, the quiet in my home shattered. Not with the gentle touch of kindness, not with the soft offer of food or the familiar ache of pity, but with a fierce determination that I hadn't felt in years. They came for me, for faces I knew well, cousins who had refused to let me disappear into my silence. They stood over me and said simply, Eleazar, get ready. We're taking you to him. I wanted to refuse, to pull back into the safe darkness of my broken world. I fought with every word I had left. It's foolish. I'm fine here. I don't want to be embarrassed again. Hope hurts more than pain. Because after years of waiting, hoping, praying, hope became a blade that cut deeper than the pain itself. I told them I wasn't strong enough, that this was a waste of breath, that my life was already ridden. But they didn't listen. No, they moved with a strength I could barely recognize, with a love that refused to accept no for an answer. They took the mat I had lain on for years, the same ragged mat that held the weight of my sweat, my sorrow, my shame. That had been my world and my prison. And they carried me, like treasure for men, each gripping a corner with fierce hands, like brothers refusing to let go, refusing to give up. Even when I had, in that moment, I realized maybe, just maybe, this journey was no longer mine alone. Maybe there was a hope worth carrying. And as the sun rose behind the mountains, I closed my eyes and let them carry me towards something I wasn't ready for, but could no longer run from. The road ahead would test me, but it was a road I had to walk or be left behind forever. We arrived, but it wasn't the quiet rival I had imagined. Far from it, the place where Jesus was staying was packed, overflowing, like bees swarming honey. The air buzzed with voices, footsteps, and the rustle of clothes pressed tight against one another. People pressed at every entrance, at the doors, at the windows, crowding the narrow streets like a flood that refused to recede. I looked round, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes, none of them looking for me, and in that moment I laughed. But it was a bitter, hollow laugh. "See," I said, "I told you. We came all this way for nothing." Hope felt like a cruel joke. But my cousins, they didn't see it that way. They looked at the crowd. They looked at the house. They looked at each other, with a fire in their eyes I hadn't seen since before I was paralyzed. And they said words that have stayed with me, echoing in my heart ever since. "If there's no door, we'll make one." I wanted to protest. I was terrified. How could they risk so much? But before I could stop them, they began to climb, up the narrow walls, up the roof, with me, fragile, shaking, heart pounding, strapped tightly to that old mat. The tiles cracked beneath their hands. Dust and clay tumbled down round us. They tore a hole open. And then, slowly, carefully, rope by rope, they lowered me down into the room below, right into the middle of the crowd, right in front of him. No more hiding, no more walls between us, just the eyes of a man who would see me, truly see me, like no one else had in ages. The room spun beneath me. My mat shifted like a fragile leaf caught in a slow autumn breeze. I didn't know where to look. All around me, voices stirred. Gasps filled the air, quick and sharp. Whispers curled like smoke in the corners. And then, a few cruel, bitter laughs. Mocking laughter, I felt exposed, naked before a crowd that had long since forgotten me. But then, I looked up, and there he was. Not the giant I had imagined, not radiant like a burning star, but something far more powerful, his eyes. Those eyes, they weren't just looking at me. They were seeing me. Not the broken, paralyzed man sprawled on that mat. Not the shadow I'd become, but the boy I used to be. The child full of dreams before pain stole them. The man who had learned to hide tears in the dark. The soul carrying every silent scream no one ever heard. And then he spoke, not with thunder, not with the sweeping words of kings or prophets. No, his voice was gentle, soft, but it struck through the crowd and straight into my heart. "Son, your sins are forgiven." Those words, they settled over me like warm rain after years of drought. Not what I expected, not what I thought I needed, but what I needed most. Because he wasn't just healing my legs. He was healing what I thought was broken beyond repair. My heart, my shame, my worth. I stood there frozen. What could I say? Forgiven. That word echoed in my mind like a question with no answer. That wasn't what I had come for. I came from my legs to walk again, to be free. But Jesus saw something I couldn't see. He looked deeper than the paralysis of my body. He saw the chains I'd hidden beneath the surface, the bitterness that had calcified inside me, the endless questions. Why me? The fear that God had forgotten me entirely. And in that moment, as he spoke, I felt something inside me begin to loosen. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying. But then, the room shifted, murmurs rose, voices filled with anger and disbelief. Religious leaders, teachers of the law, their eyes narrowed, their lips cold in offense. Who can forgive sins but God? They whispered sharply, as if to remind the crowd and Jesus of sacred boundaries. Jesus didn't flinch. He turned to them, not with fury, not with harsh words, but with a calm that burned like holy fire. His voice cut through the tension as he asked, which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or get up and walk. The question hung in the air like thunder before the storm. They were silent, because he knew what they didn't. That healing the soul, forgiving the sins that bind us, is the greatest miracle of all. Then he turned back to me. The room fell into silence. Every breath held, every eye fixed, and then he said it. Words that shattered the prison I had lived in for 8 long years. Get up, take your mat, and go home. I didn't hesitate, because in that moment, I knew my legs didn't tremble. They didn't falter. They didn't betray the years of waiting. They moved with a strength that surprised me, like they had been waiting their whole life for this exact command. For the first time in what felt like forever, I stood on my own 2 feet. I stood tall, but the miracle wasn't only in my legs. It was in my heart, because as I lifted that old, worn mat, the mat that had held my body and my broken dreams, I carried it like a trophy. Not because I needed it anymore, but as a reminder that I was no longer who I used to be, no longer the man defined by pain, by silence, by waiting. I was free, I was healed, I was made whole. And in that moment, with every eye watching, I realized something else. This wasn't just my miracle. It was a promise. A promise that no matter how long you waited, no matter how deep your pain, no matter how far you've fallen, there is a power greater than all of it. And that power is love. You, yes, who's listening to me. Maybe you've been lying on your own mat for too long. Maybe not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, secretly. Maybe you've stopped believing healing is for you. That freedom is possible. That God still hears your voice in the night. Let me tell you what I learned that day. Jesus didn't just see a paralyzed man. He saw a beloved son. He didn't just heal my body. He healed what no one else could reach, my soul. And he's still doing it today, for anyone, for everyone, for you.
What this story reminds us is that no matter how long we've been carrying our burdens, whether visible or hidden, God's love never stops reaching for us. Healing, restoration, and hope are always within reach, even when we feel forgotten or broken. If this story touched you, inspired you, or gave you a glimmer of hope, please don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to join a community where stories of faith and love remind us all that we are never truly alone. Share your thoughts in the comments, and also your story. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and until next time. And remember, you are deeply loved.